We're going to call this work session to order. I was hoping we'd get everybody here tonight to hear this presentation. We got Lloyd Kerr, who's going to be presenting for us. Before we do, Commissioner Henderson, if you do an invocation for us, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If everybody is, Dear Father, we just come before thee with thanksgiving in our hearts. We just come thank you, my Father. We know that you are truly a good God, my Father, one who sits up high and look down low. May you guide us and mold us the way that you would have us to conduct your meeting for your people. This we pray. In our Lord Savior Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Silas Queen, would you lead our pledge tonight? A magnanimous person of the media. Would you do that tonight for us? Let's all stand together. I didn't ask for total.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As Lloyd comes to present tonight, he was originally going to do this at our retreat, which it's hard to believe after the rain we've had, but it got snowed out. Well, it really got rained out that night too, but we appreciate Lloyd being here. I know that all of us realize the pressure from development is going to return, and it's probably going to hit us without warning to a great extent. And I know one of the things that we had done a lot of discussion about was the brick store overlay, so we might talk about that even though Commissioner Henderson's not. I mean, Commissioner Douglas is ill tonight. He's not going to be able to be with us. I know he'd want to chime in, and I'm sure that Commissioner Maddox would like to. And hopefully Commissioner Sims will come in. I know all of us received in our package your slideshow. So if you could, lead us through this.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about this. Each of you have talked with several of you about your concerns about the land development regulations as well as the zoning ordinance. And so I put together a few slides here. A couple of them are just informational, and then asking some questions of you to get some direction on what it is that you would like to see out of a project if you want a project to move ahead. There we go. A couple of things that I wanted to mention. If we are to undertake any type of a revision, or even if it's determined that you want to completely rewrite the zoning ordinance and have a complete new vision, if you will, for the county, some of the things I think that we need to do in order to make that successful. One is to rebuild the public trust, and you can do that through significant public engagement, public meetings, numerous public updates. I will need FaceTime with you all individually and as a group. I think there's an education process to that as well, so that you all understand what is being proposed, and that the public understands it thoroughly enough that they're comfortable with it, and that at least they have an appreciation for and a clear understanding of what it says. I think we also need to be ever mindful and cognizant of any local preferences that there are, and that by that I mean the public, the citizens, as well as the board members. One key thing in any project is to make sure that we have sufficient time to do the project. Again, that depends on what the parameters of the project are, and we'll kind of get to that in a minute. But it would not be beneficial to anyone, I think, to try to set too close a time frame for completion of the project. I don't believe in having project creep and would not want it to last any longer than it absolutely has to, but I do think that we would want to make sure that we have ample time to do any of the work that's going to be done. Is there a way that I can? Sorry. Yeah, if you would, for some reason. I apologize. But we can go to the next. The next slide talks about some things, absolute transparency, and of course, those would be things like making sure the public knows all where we are in the process, and that you understand where we are in the process. That would be posting things on the web, providing copies of things, the proposals, whenever they're asked for. And this, again, is key. Board of Commissioners agreement on priorities. And in order for us to go ahead, in order for us to have a successful project, we need to develop some consensus among the board, and that particularly when it comes down to listing the priorities for a project, that you all are in agreement, and that that way I'll know which direction to go in, and there won't be a question of one particular commissioner's interest over another interest. Realistic timelines and benchmarks goes, and that would be when I develop a timeline, that I have benchmarks in there, and that we agree on those benchmarks as to and enable us to measure the progress of the project. The other thing is testing benchmarks as they're achieved, and making sure that we're not putting unrealistic expectations on the project. If you decide to have committees working on this as opposed to a staff project that will then be presented to you all, that the committees be well balanced, that we ensure that we have adequate representation for all of the interests that may be out there, not only property owners, but any of the stakeholders who may have an interest. I think we need to have the work sessions with you all in order for me to vet things with you as we go through the process, to make sure that I am going down the right path, and then that you give me your further direction and give me the clarity that we would need. Your continuous involvement in the process, and again, that may be one-on-one, but it will also be publicly as well. And then something that we would do would be to frequently look at the project and our process and how we're doing it, and analyze whether or not we are moving in the right direction and moving accordingly. So the first question for you all is, what is the project? Now, these are just some of the things that I've listed. Some of the things that you all have mentioned to me that you would like to see. And this, I think, is where we open it up for discussion. A unified development code, meaning the land development regulations and the zoning code are all put into one document. Is there an additional overlay? We currently have the brick store overlay. There is a draft that the board, that is ready for consideration by the board. There are some of the property owners there have some objection to certain requirements and to certain regulations in that ordinance, but there is an ordinance that was prepared by an outside firm that is ready to be presented to you all. Do you want new zoning and development regulations? And this goes to looking at a completely new start. And basically, we would continue using the old one until we wrote them, and we would start over with a new process. This would entail establishing a new vision, and unless that you feel like the current vision that we have, and get some agreement on what is the vision. If there's a question, making sure again that we're in agreement as to we know what it is. Or is there something else that you want to do entirely? Is that, or none of those things? So I will tell you that there's a couple of different ways we can handle a project. One, of course, would be to contract with an outside consulting firm. The other would be, of course, to bring it in-house and for us to do it in-house. I think, and I've mentioned this to a couple of you all, if we were to completely redo the ordinance, it would require most likely somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 18 months. And I would think it would be more towards the 18-month end of that. And in order to do that, I would need to hire additional personnel. There's no way with the current personnel that we'd be able to handle that on, because it would take significant amount of work and public meetings and so forth. If you are looking at revising, if the project were to be revision of the code so that it is more user-friendly, that we clean up the language to where it doesn't contradict itself, we get it more some clarity and some brevity, then I believe that we could do that in-house in about a 12-month period. And I could handle that on my own without any additional outside help. The overlay, if there's a new overlay that was to be developed, I would think you're probably looking at possibility of 6 to 9 months to do a new overlay. And the majority of that time would be spent in getting all of the public participation processes and getting all of those public meetings in. The drafting time is quite tedious. It does take quite a bit of time. But to make sure that you check to have the right, make sure that you have enough sufficient public input and that you are going down the right road takes a lot of time. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that at this point.
Commissioners, this is a good time. After all, if we're going to get on this, and I think all of us realize we need to, I'm going to make a couple of statements and I let everybody else have the opportunity. I'm not thinking about a whole new one. I'd like for us to revise. I believe I sat in your office and we looked at 2 binders full of information that developers would need to follow. Can you make one?
Yeah. Well, the simple answer is yeah, I can take that one. Yes, it is possible to do that. Regardless of what we do, because of the fact that we have a large number of overlays, not only do we have Allen and Salem overlay, but we've also got multiple watershed protection overlays. We have wetlands protection overlays. We have a lot of additional layers, if you will, built into our zoning ordinance. It will never be 100 pages long. It will never be that. We may be able to thin it down, I think, a fair amount, but it will always be a lengthy and a rather voluminous document if we continue to maintain all of the various overlays and the things that we currently have in place. If we were to do away with those for whatever reason, certainly that would shrink that down. Some revision to the current ordinance, for instance, our cell tower ordinance has a little bit of age on it now. I have seen other ordinances. That particular portion of the ordinance, I believe, is about 30 pages long. And some of the newer ordinances are considerably shorter than that. But again, we would want to make sure that we cover all of our bases to make sure that we're not going to run afoul of any federal or state law, particularly with that. But you would see some reduction, yes. And it is possible to combine the two of them. A lot of jurisdictions do have a combination. They don't have a separate development regulation.
In your opinion now, is it simple? You've been in Florida, you've been here, you've been in the city of Covington, you've been other places. Is it hard to read?
It is difficult to navigate because there are several different places that you have to go to get information. I've talked to a few of the engineers and design professionals out there that do work constantly in the county, and that's their main complaint. I asked them about personnel, about inspections, about our processes, and their main complaint really was it's hard for us to figure out what we need to present because it can be very difficult. Now, is it harder than any of the other ones I've dealt with? No. Nature of the beast a lot of times, particularly when you have a very urban, even though we are rural on the east side and in the south part of the county, we are fast becoming very urbanized. Anytime that you have that population that we have, that tends to make your ordinances a little more complex because the more people you have, the more things different unique things come up that you have to deal with. So there are ordinances out there that are very short. As a matter of fact, I looked at one last night or a few days ago from Bryan County, Georgia, which is just outside of Savannah. Very simple ordinance, but it is still a very small county. I believe the population is less than 20,000. Very, very rural, and so it's still very, very, very simple. They do not have overlays. They don't have many zoning categories, and so it's just a different. It's a very, very different scenario and a different type of work, or rather a different type of community as well.
I have other questions, but I don't want to monopolize. Commissioners, would y'all like to make some comments or ask some questions? Commissioner Schultz.
So Lloyd, what would be the optimum from your perspective?
At this point, I think the optimum for me at this point would be to spend time reformatting, reorganizing, and cleaning up the language in our current ordinance. If the board wanted to, because of the brick store overlays, there is an ordinance that's ready for presentation. If you wanted to adopt that, I mean, certainly that would not make any significant additional impact to the work. But I think at this point, I think we'd best be served by cleaning up what we have. And then being able, we do have our revision to the comprehensive plan is due in 2017. At that point, I think it would really be most appropriate at that point if we wanted to establish a new or revised vision, if you will, for the county. I think if we did that in conjunction with the comprehensive plan, then your comprehensive plan, as you know, is your overall the 30,000-foot view, and your land development regulations and zoning ordinance implement those goals and objectives. In working in concert with those things, then it would be far easier and really make a lot more sense, if you will, to do that at that time. If you're looking to do a new vision. If not, then certainly we would benefit greatly by going through and reorganizing this and making it more user-friendly. And that's one of the questions is, what are your expectations out of it as well? Are y'all looking for, are you looking for the new vision? Or are you looking to make it more user-friendly? Are you looking to, maybe we could provide some incentives for certain types of development? Are you looking to raise the standards? Are you in agreement that the standards that we have are sufficient for the time being? Or is now a time that you would like to try to raise that bar a little bit? And I think those are some of the things that you all would have to consider as well.
Commissioner Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question, but Lloyd, I know you haven't been here very long. You were here previously, but have the zoning department or the planning and zoning, have we ever had like a SWOT analysis to really look at, what part of our zoning is weak, what part is strong, what needs some improvement? How do we compare with our neighboring counties, or how do we compare with counties that we want to be like?
I don't think that there's ever been a formal SWOT analysis. I think we do that on a daily basis. But there's not been a formal process that's gone through. As far as comparison to other jurisdictions, we do look at periodically specific requirements that are in our ordinance. But if there is as to my knowledge, the board has never indicated a jurisdiction that they would like to emulate. And that's, if there was some consensus on that, then certainly we could take a look at what they do and see how they're able to be successful in what they do. far as I know, that's not been done either.
Yeah, I guess what I'm looking for is a starting point that can put us in the right direction. I guess in my opinion, you need to know where you're weak and where you're strong, where you're too restrictive, where you're not restrictive enough. And I guess that would tie into doing at some point, maybe a unified development code. That may be down the line. I'm just looking at the questions you got here. Overlays. I mean, I would love to see what the collaborative firm has come up with Brick Store, where we stand. I guess Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Douglas has headed that up. But that would be nice to know where we are, where we stand, because I know there's development pressures on that side of town. And the last overlay is the Oak Hill overlay, which is all in Commissioner Douglas' district. My thought would be, let's try to get some things cleaned up. Let's get that common vision. Let's get Brick Store done. And I mean, Oak Hill, in my opinion, is a couple years down the road. Unless all of a sudden there's a lot of pressure on that little part of town. That's all I got right now. Thank you.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr, for coming before us. And as we talked about a few weeks ago, this is a pretty important topic for the community, and certainly it's in my top three. I do believe that big growth cycle is going to come back, and I think it's going to hit us hard. And we certainly don't need to slide down the hill because we've got weaknesses, as Commissioner Sims said. I'm a big fan of raising the bar. I'm not as I told you, I don't have a lot of experience in land use and development code, but I'm continually told by, like the chairman said, I'm continually told that from a developer standpoint, ease of use and effectiveness, and it's not really user-friendly. So that's probably the cleanup. But I'm told by homeowners and business owners that we need to raise the bar as far as architecture, as far as landscaping, as far as, and as me and you talked about, how do you raise the bar and not get over into land right issues? That's a heck of a balance. I kind of like Commissioner Sims' thoughts. I think if your team got together and you may already have identified the weaknesses and then the other, and then kind of personalize it, maybe get in front of us individually or 2-on-2 or something like that, and try to come up with some common themes from our side. Hey, this is what we can support. This sounds crazy, or can you think about this?
Sure.
Again, I just want to raise the bar.
I'm going to make one comment, and then I'm going to answer. I was going to say, not only is it important for the developers to be able to read it and understand it, but staff.
Oh, sure.
Because I think a lot of times it puts them on the spot if they're confused, if they don't know which overlay to go to, or I guess because they're somewhat different, those overlays maybe in their mind might bleed together. So I think that's important too. So, Commissioner.
I just want to clarify the term Unified Development Code, because when we were working on the 2050 plan, the Unified Development Code meant one thing, and I just want to make sure that what your definition is.
There's a couple of different definitions. It could be a unified code, could mean one code for the entire county, including all of the municipalities. It also can mean that you put the two documents together. And I've seen it used both ways. To have a unified code for the county would take significant effort. I don't know that, each of the cities and towns are pretty unique, and unique in the uses and their development patterns, much more so than the bulk of the county incorporated area. So I think that would be a kind of a monumental task to do that. But, certainly if that's something that wanted to be pursued, we could look at that as well.
Mr. Garrett has some comments.
Just a quick question.
You said it could mean to put the two documents together. It's the zoning ordinance and development code. Is that the two?
Yes.
Can you
I'm sorry.
clarify that?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's the development regulations are the technical aspects of how a subdivision is developed and all those things, or commercial property. And that can be included, and there's a separate chapter.
And I'll say from my standpoint, we went down the road trying to make the cities and the county the same, and it was a rough time there, and I'm not in favor of doing it. I'd like to get, I think we had one time said about 95% of Newton County is unincorporated, and that's where I'd like to focus instead of trying to get them all. And then one more comment I was going to make, but I don't want us to bog down too much, but I think we're doing good, is, you know, we have 3 zoning issues tonight, and I remember back during the heyday they had 10 or more, and they would be here past midnight a lot of times. Is there a way that we can build this where people are enticed to go, developers are enticed to go into areas where zonings would be a little bit easier for us, and the community, let's say whether it's a development node or an area where that particular kind of zoning is better suited? Is there a way we can incentivize?
I think that the simple answer to the question is yes. Some of those incentives may not be, generally speaking, an incentive usually has some kind of monetary benefit to it. One of the things that in this county, we have a fair amount of land that is served by both water and sewer, but our minimum lot sizes are very large for water and sewer. The other communities that I've worked in have permitted as small as 4,000 square foot lots. Now, that may not work in Newton County, but if you look at incentives, some of the incentives could be, if they're developed in certain areas, if you focus development there, that their lot yields be higher, their densities be higher. So that, for instance, R2 zoning, I believe, has 20,000 square foot minimum, which is almost a half an acre for a piece of property on water and sewer. That's a very large piece of land for property that's served by that. But, you know, it may be that that is what the citizens, and that is what you all are in favor of. And in that case, it really wouldn't work. But if there are certain cases where you could incentivize or use as an incentive more lots, maybe smaller, less road frontage. If you do, let's say, if you put in additional parks or public space or dedicate space to a school, then you can reduce the lot widths by 10 or 20%. What that would do would allow someone possibly to gain additional lots if they weren't able to maximize the yield already in a development. Things like that. But you know, there is some costs that go along with that, and whether or not it would be suitable for the community. You can incentivize it, but it's whether or not those incentives will be right. Our permitting fees are not significant enough that if we were to, in my opinion, if we were to waive permitting fees, I don't believe that would be incentive enough to attract developers. They're going to be attracted here for a lot of different reasons, but I don't think that would be quite enough incentive to do that. So,
If you want to, I guess we can move along.
the next, this is just a slide talking about the development standards, and I think I've heard from a couple of you on that. And then the last slide that I have, this next slide asks about preservation. We do a lot right now in the ordinance to preserve our natural resources and cultural resources. We have a rural atmosphere in a large part of the county. We've got a lot of farmland. And I know in the past there was some interest in mandating, if you will, a certain or creating areas that would be preserved by requiring very large lot sizes and so forth like that. whether or not there's an interest to maintain, or what is the extent of the interest, if you will, to maintain the rural, where in the county there's little development, the rural atmosphere of those parts of the county. Is there an interest in providing incentives to maintain farmland? As the population moves north, or rather east from Atlanta and north from Henry County, a lot of our rural areas are going to become developed, and they are being looked at currently for development. So, is that a priority for the board? The last slide that I had there was maybe just, again, opening some discussion on what you think are some of the best commercial developments and residential developments. What are those things that make those, in your mind, the best of us? And that could be a very long, in-depth conversation. I don't know that we would get to that, going through that all today, but at least it's there for your consideration, and that would help to determine what direction you want this ordinance to go in. So now, I guess at this point, if you want to chew on those things that I've given you, give you some consideration for those things, or if you'd like, we could go ahead and begin to set the priorities. I don't know if you're ready to discuss that, but when we do that, I would like to be able to get some specifics and agreement or consensus from you all as to what the priorities are, so that I know which projects to tackle, where to begin.
Commissioner Schultz.
Well, I think the best way to begin is for you to start looking at how you can streamline the language, because then you'll be able to give us some perspective on if there's any actual code that needs to be changed. But if you can pull that language together, to me that's the first step that you need to take.
And actually, we've already been doing that. We have a running list of things that we can put together as one package to amend the ordinance. So we've actually been doing that. These are things cleaning up the language, and they're things where we've had contradictions, and that's primarily what all that is. And that's the only thing that we focused on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess going back to my previous comments, I would just love to see it. And hopefully you guys got time to do a SWOT analysis and really break it out into, what you see, what Judy sees, strength, weakness, opportunities. I think that would help the board as well, because we don't deal with a lot of these zoning issues every day. So it would help us to see into your world a little better.
I'm going to mention today I was made aware that there's some permits that have been requested from DOT on Highway 278 and 11 at the hub on some of the property. So we know that it's imminent. There are other developers, and I'd like, you mentioned the brick store overlay. Is there a way maybe we can get an overview of that one evening and try to get started? I don't know whether Commissioner Maddox would concur, but I'd like to get out in front of some of that if we're going to implement that. I hate for us to have to try to make people comply. I know the Dollar General store did, but it would be nice if we get a little further along with that. So I don't know if you can do all these things at one time and juggle all of them. I know you're short-staffed.
Well, I think that certainly we can do the SWOT analysis. I don't believe I could have it ready by the next meeting, but we could work on doing that. The brick store overlay, as I mentioned, there is one that was done by the consulting firm. There's a group of citizens did put together a response, if you will, to that draft. So they differ, as you might suspect, and I would certainly be glad to give you those ordinances or those copies for your consideration. And we can go from there. And then if you, whenever you feel it's appropriate to bring it up to the, for consideration, then you offer to do that.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could, on Brick Store overlay, I certainly still support that issue. Conversation's been going on 15 plus years, maybe 18 now. But in addition to the words you just spoke of, there's also for HOAs a citizen-driven effort that I guess they're in the middle of their program in reviewing and defining what they want their area to look like. And so very wisely and patiently, I think we should see what their survey results been out of pocket. So I'm not sure if they've published that yet. But there's quite a few citizens with a good bit of passion that need to be heard before we go forward. So, thank you.
Commissioner Henderson, we're gonna quit just a couple of minutes to do our consent, but go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The public input, how much of the citizen input have we had so far?
We haven't done any at this point. Outside of that, I've talked to a few individuals, but since I was not given the direction to move ahead on any project. Now, once we begin to do this, depending on what your direction is and what type of project you want, that would determine the amount of public participation.
Absolutely. And I just want to state, and I haven't said too much, I think transparency is what we really need to be focusing on to the public. It's for them knowing exactly what we're doing and making sure that we have that input.
And then finally on this one, when you and I and Tom and I met, one of the questions was, is vinyl siding prohibited in Newton County? Did we do an ordinance that prohibited it throughout the county?
I don't believe it's prohibited. I'll have to verify that.
In the Allen and Salem overlay, vinyl siding is prohibited, but in the general unincorporated base ordinance, it's not prohibited.
Jude, would you and the clerk make sure about that? Because I seem to recall tonight. So I want to make sure that staff is fully aware of which direction we're going. And if all minds are clear on that, I appreciate it. I know it was abbreviated, but I'm glad you were here and helped us out. And I hope we haven't given you too many balls to toss up in the air at this point.
Well, that's fine. I'll work on the SWOT analysis, and then I'll also get you that ordinance to begin to review. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks again. And Commissioners, I'll draw your attention to the consent agenda. As you've looked at it, are there any items there that you'd like to have pulled to deal with separately? Are there any items you'd like to add to the consent agenda tonight? Okay, when we get to our regular business session, we'll do them all in its entirety. And with that, we stand adjourned. We'll be back in about 9 minutes. Commissioners, let's take our places. I'll call this meeting of Newton County Board of Commissioners to order for April 21st, 2015. I want to extend a welcome to everybody that's here tonight. We appreciate your attendance. We hope you survived the rain, and we'll be looking at some of the results of that in a little bit. We are thankful that you're here with us and you spent your time tonight. We would ask that you would silence your cell phones at this time. Michael Levy wrote, if life becomes hard, soften it with random acts of kindness. Tonight we have a treat. Reverend Marcelo Baines is going to deliver our invocation. I saw him. Yeah, there he is. A long, long time ago, I first met Marcelo when he was just Marcelo. We appreciate you being with us here tonight, and we are thankful that you're going to lead us in an invocation. I know Commissioner Douglas and his wife are both ill, and Commissioners, I'm unaware of any other particulars. Do you have any special prayer requests for Marcelo, Reverend Baines tonight? Strength, wisdom for our Board of Commissioners. How about that?
Amen. Amen. First, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to our elected officials. Give honor to you. Let us pray. Gracious and eternal Father, Lord, we thank you for today, for all your blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for the rain that you have let fall down. Lord, we thank you for today, the sunshine that is shining so bright. We thank you, Lord, for allowing us to be in a country where freedom is free. We thank you for allowing us to live in a county where it is one of the best counties to live in, Newton County. Lord, we thank you for all the people that the citizens that make up this community, Lord. We thank you for all our emergency responses, sheriff officers, firefighters. Lord, we ask you to bless their families, Lord. We ask you to bless our commissioners. And you have gave them the duty to lead this community, Lord. Lord, we pray for our citizens, Lord. We pray for just the safety, and we pray for the growth in our community, Lord. We pray for everything that you have for us, Lord. We thank you for it right now. Lord, we ask if you would to touch Commissioner Douglas and his wife, Lord, in their time of need right now, Lord. We pray for the Loom family who have lost two sons, Lord. We pray for the Johnson family who have lost two members of their family on this week, Lord. We thank you for that. And we ask all these prayers in your daughter's son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. We had scheduled Commissioner and his son to lead tonight, but the son is playing baseball. Probably a rain out from a couple of days ago, so we have asked Bob Atkinson, who is Bob is here with us tonight. There he is. Come on up, Bob. He has come before us a number of times, a veteran, and also has given us updates on a great many things as far as Veterans Affairs. We're going to let him, after you do the pledge, we're going to let you go ahead and do your little spiel and promote what you want to promote for us.
Okay, I got to run back to the seat.
Okay. Well, okay, we'll give you a brief time, but let's go ahead and stand with Bob as he leads us tonight.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll let you go back to your seat real quick if you need to. Sounds like we're in for a real treat in the upcoming months. I believe Relay for Life, while he's coming, Relay for Life is Friday night at the church at Covington. There's probably other things that I need to announce as well. Thank you and welcome.
Yes, I'm with the Walk of Heroes. I'm a volunteer. We are all volunteers. We're a nonprofit. I've been here before. The Walk of Heroes is a veterans memorial being built in Rockdale County for the state and the nation. We'd like to say it's the biggest thing south of Washington, D.C. I won't go into it too much, but if you want to check it out, it's walkofheroes.org. But I want to talk about, we're bringing the Vietnam Wall to our location in Rockdale County, May 6th through the 12th. It'll be there 24 hours a day, no charge. It's a great opportunity for people that can't make it to Washington to see what a scaled down model of the wall looks like. We're selling t-shirts, but we're also having a Braves game on the 6th. And the Braves have given us a bank of tickets, and those tickets are $12 a piece and $10 reduced parking. So it's also on our internet site, if anyone's interested in that. And one other thing I'd like to say is Governor Deal is giving a certificate of honor to all Vietnam-era veterans. And this era it includes any service, be it National Guard, anyone that was in the service between 1950 and 1975. I'm a contact person. My email is atkinson2569@bellsouth.net. If anyone wants to send, I need their name, their rank, the service they were in, their mailing address, and if I can get email and phone numbers we're trying to compile. There's 243,000 in that era in Georgia, and we're trying to compile a list of contacts.
Okay, get your pencils and pens out again. We're going to mention them one more time. First of all, the dates for the Vietnam Wall is May 6th through 12th.
Correct.
And that's free admission.
Correct.
And you can give directions if somebody needs those. I'm sure you can just look it up.
Pamphlets.
And then there was a Braves game. I forget which day was it. Okay, that's on the 6th too. And then now give us your the email address one more time for anybody. You're talking about Vietnam veterans, right?
Vietnam era veterans.
Vietnam
you don't have
era.
to be a combat veteran.
Okay.
Just so you sign your name, you were in the service.
So if you want to give that, if everybody can write that down at this point.
Okay. It's Atkinson, ATKINSON2569@gmail.com.
All right. We hope you get a flood of those. By the way, you were in what branch of the Armed Forces?
Marine Corps.
Marine Corps.
I was in Vietnam in 1966 and 67.
Thanks for your service and what you do for the Walk of Heroes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for anybody else who serves, we thank you too. We'll take a look at a couple of our ongoing projects. Crowell Road and State Route 82 and 162, the old Porterdale intersection. Almost all of the utilities have been moved and the contractor is back. As you know, 5 inches of rain as well as the other days is holding up some of the progress on that. And yes, there are a few days when the contractor is not there. I've been getting a few phone calls about that. There's going to be 2 airport road reports. One is the intersection improvement at 142. That one is underway. It's very close. They've got all the lanes done. They're working on some of the road beds today when I took this picture. And somewhere in the middle there, those lines will be moved, and there is a turning lane for Flint Hill Elementary School. And on the other end of Airport Road, as a result of the 5-inch rain, this is one of the roads that had to be closed yesterday. It's a total washout of dried Indian Creek. It's when they land an airplane, they fly right over top of it. So any access to the Relay for Life, any access to the airport, the best way to get there is from the side where the Flint Hill School is in 142. That's one of the roads that's closed, and I'm not sure what's up there, but you see some of the pipes that I've taken a picture of today. We got Hancock Road is also closed, It's more in the upper end of the county toward Walton County, and it's got 3 pipes there, and it couldn't take the load for the rainfall. It was a huge flash flood, and all of us experienced that at our homes. That road is closed. I would say that the airport road closure has the earliest chance of being opened back up, and we think about 2 weeks. And today we saved the county a little money. We located some pipe that can carry that load, and we were looking at $30,000 worth of pipe, and it looks like we found it for around 14, so that'll be helpful, and it is available. We'll rent the equipment and do it. The Hancock Road closure, we cannot handle that one. It's a sewer main that comes across those pipes, if you're looking at that one, and it is a high-pressure main, and our crew is not quite capable of taking care of that. And then a citizen let us know about East End Road this morning. It has begun to erode away over the weekend, and by this morning, it had totally collapsed. So we've got that road closed. We're going to handle that one in-house as well, but we're going to do a priority. We're going to work at Airport Road first. Citizens are helping us find some of these. A lot of times, they're not really visible until they begin to fall. And I will warn everybody, and I've asked the paper to do the same. Just because it looks like the pavement is intact doesn't mean that there's any dirt supporting it. It's all been washed out. And be surprised at some of the damage that's been done. Also, I don't think we have a picture of Oak Hill Bridge, but of course there was some damage there too. The temporary bridge that the contractor was using actually floated away. And so they were trying to go downstream and bring it back up today so they could get back to work. And I think we're probably going to be looking at some other road closures in the next few days when those show up, and we'll take care of them as quickly as we can. I wanted to mention, most of us were able to go to the convention for the ACCG in Savannah. This year the theme was innovation and integration. I think it was the best one that I've attended. The weather wasn't good, just like it wasn't here, so we didn't get the beach. But we did have some good fellowship. There was some excellent classes I attended too. There was some breakout sessions that really enabled commissioners from around the state to meet and discuss issues related to what they were facing in their hometown and their home counties. That's really valuable, and I know sometimes, even though it takes a lot of time out of our schedule and it does cost some money, I think that in the long run, everybody realizes how important it is. And then I wanted to mention one more thing. The presentation that Aaron Wadley was going to do last week, because we had a commissioner missing. We have a commissioner missing tonight. We're going to get that one on roads back online as soon as we possibly can. We'll try to do it for the next commission meeting. And with that, the county manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. I had a few things for you this evening to take a look at and to discuss with you. First thing is, I guess everybody was at the budget meetings last week on the 14th. We handled about $12 million worth of our $60 or so million dollar budget between the general fund and the enterprise funds at those meetings last week. The upcoming meeting is the 28th. Also be in the administration building on the first floor in the training room. That'll be where everybody's together, all the commissioners are together, and we'll hear the remaining 48 million or so of the budget that we operate under and the departments that represent that amount. I originally suggested that we do appropriations that night as well. We talked this morning, the chairman and I, Ms. Kelly, about maybe splitting that out and having a third meeting, because I'm afraid that the 28th, next Tuesday night, may take up the entire 4 hours, and I don't want to cut short the appropriations that are going to come before you. So if that's okay, we would like to schedule a third budget hearing, budget workshop for May 12th. That's a Tuesday. It'll be the Tuesday following the first. It'll be the second Tuesday in May, in between our two board meetings.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. if that's acceptable. And that would be for appropriations.
Also, as we talked about, I guess last year, about this time of year, we're in the middle of a agreement with working for our pest control at the facilities, all the different buildings around the county. We've had an ongoing renewal. I think this is the third renewal of the term, and there's no action required. The way the contract's written, there's no action required to renew this at the current price, which is $6,498. I brought this before you last April as well. I just want to advise you that unless there's objections, I believe they're providing a good service, and they were the lowest bid a couple of years ago when we bid it out. So if there's any objections to that, please let me know. Also, the first meeting of the Solid Waste Citizens Committee will be tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. I think Ms. Jackie sent out the notice for that. And that'll also be in the admin building, first floor training room. So I think that's probably going to be a short introductory meeting. So that will be tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. And finally, I emailed out to the board a memorandum earlier today. And this is stuff that you all, I think, are aware of. It's from Jason Nord, the Water Resources Director. And, it's regarding the upgrades at the Cornish Creek water treatment facility, as well as the Williams Street water treatment facility. Most of these upgrades are outlined in the draft water supply master plan. They were also outlined in the Newton County Water and Sewer Authority. They also, in their review of the water supply master plan, commented on some of those upgrades that are necessary. And I just want to make sure that everybody, this board's aware of the continued need for those items as we move through other big topics. Those things need to be addressed as well. So that memo is for your consideration on that. So if there's any questions about that, I can try to.
Commissioner Mathers was first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Garrett, I think everything starts and ends with water, in every community, and I strongly feel we need to move forward in pursuing the necessary upgrades. So, in your opinion, what do we need to do to move this forward? Has this memo went to the other partners, or should we send this to all the partners that are at the table with us to understand where we're going?
Mr. Nord sent it to Mike Hopkins and also Billy Bushillen. Mike, the director of the Water Authority, and Billy Bushillen, he's the deputy city manager, but he's their water sewer, sort of their point of contact at the city. As you know, those two are our two biggest in-county water retailers that we sell the most water to here in the county. So they were copied on the memo.
Commissioner Schultz.
Actually, I'm dovetailing on your comment. I do think that it would be a good move to include the other customers at the table. I think that we need to include the other municipalities who are customers at the table. So I would encourage you to, especially in the last paragraph where it says that we invite all members of the Newton County Consecutive Water System, including the City of Covington, Newton County Water and Sewer, to have a seat at the table as we discuss ensuring an adequate water supply. I think that we need to incorporate the other water customers at the table as well.
Commissioner Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, I guess to expand my earlier comments, if you read the two draft reports from two separate organizations that come out recently, there's actually some fundamental commonalities there regarding our current system. So it's my hope that we can get some professionals, some engineers in the room and figure out exactly what is needed, and then in short order after that, issue some RFQs or RFPs, whatever certainly appreciate Mr. Norwood as well. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go right into our consent agenda at this point. Item number 6. Commissioners, there's a lot of things there. I want to bring out a couple of, just point out one thing, and that is that the Sheriff's Office is ordering some bulletproof vests to protect our folks. I appreciate what they do, and all of us do. So at this time on the consent agenda, I'd like to entertain a motion. 2 and 3. Any further discussion? All in favor? And I would like to note that Ms. Jackie has provided us with one sheet of paper that was an insert to those minutes. Item number 7 was tabled from the April 7th meeting. I'll handle that for Aaron tonight. It was really a resolution to amend the purchasing policy and procedures. And again, I'll reiterate, this is not the purchasing policy that's meeting right now. This is the DOT. Since that time, legal has not only formatted it, but they've reviewed it. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve item number 7 through transportation. All right, we're going to do ladies first, 3 and 4. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Just to give me up to speed, since I was out 2 weeks ago, this is to change our in-house policies to reflect or mirror state policy.
That's exactly right. The DOT discovered that our policies were somewhat different, and I believe they've done that. Maybe it was Spalding. I forget. Griffin was the other entity that had to do that, so they asked us to do it. So yes, thank you, Commissioner. And I think I was ready to ask for the vote. All in favor? That's 4-0. Thank you very much. Item number 8 is a request from SRG to approve monitoring wells on the right-of-way out near Settlers Grove where their facility is. Did the council need to make any comments on that? Absolutely. Give you a second to review as Mr. Craig's getting ready.
Let me give you a brief description, if I may, of what you're looking at. The first is a SRG facility that we used to know as Covington molding. It's been discovered that there are toxic chemicals on the site, TCE, trichloroethylene, and they are trying to identify whether there's migration of that toward the creek that flows through the edge of really between Walmart and Settlers Grove. And they've asked for permission to do groundwater monitoring in wells along the county right-of-way. The first document is a utility encroachment permit that would allow them to install the groundwater wells. The second document is a map of Hazel Rand Road and Industrial Boulevard. Shows where they would like to do the groundwater testing. Third document is a typical well installation, just to give you some idea of what we're looking at. And then the last page shows a groundwater well, one that's been testing and one that has been capped. So you have some idea of what you would see on the side of the road. Of course, they've got an obligation to replace, once they pull these groundwater wells, they'll repair the pavement to GDOT standards, leave it as good or better than they found it. It's part of their corrective action plan to satisfy Georgia EPD.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question, well, first of all, I have attended most of those meetings, and I believe that SRG is trying to the best of their ability to do some corrective, planning. in trying to lead the situation. However, there's a concern, I think I stated at the last meeting that we were at with our county manager, Mr. Garrett, with our county attorney, and that was because the branch that goes behind Southern Road feeds into that Kobe was that we had wanted to test the water because we know that it had been leaked for years and years, to be sure that there was not even a minute little TCE that was maybe going directly to our water system. And that was my first concern. And we really wanted somehow to test it. And I think I kind of mirrored that concern to the chair. And I think it's very important that we do test it, because I think that will give us a peace of mind, especially for the residents of Southern Rose and for the community at large, to test it to make sure that the chemical is not flowing over to our water supply for the entire county. Secondly, we know that in order to draw the TCE, the chemical that has kind of been over into the community, you have to draw it out. It's a chemical, what they tell me, that just stands down, it be kind of stagnated. It may float some water, smells, tasteless, odorless, and it just won't be washed away. It has to be kind of pulled out of the earth into a machine in order to make it, I guess, in order to try to get rid of it. Those are, I think, the corrective action measures that we want to give, that I want to give, that makes me feel good about trying to keep them, know exactly what's going on, exactly what they're doing, because it causes cancer, and that really concerns me in the Silver Grove community, and it's something that I personally don't take lightly, and I tell you, I fight to the very end to protect my constituents over in the Silver Grove area.
Commissioner Schultz.
My question is more just, is there a timeliness to accepting this document tonight, since this is the first time we've seen this, or is it possible for us to table it until the next meeting so that we can have some time to study?
Sure, no rush.
There's not a...
No.
Okay.
I do think that Commissioner Henderson's idea about testing the creek is a wise one, because there is a stormwater retention pond. I understand some of these chemicals that bound themselves to the sediments in the bottom of the retention pond. So when you get a heavy rain event, it's highly probable that some of that water is going out the intake is going over the spillway and going in the creek, and it could pose a hazard depending on the concentrations that are reaching the creek.
Commissioner Maddox, go ahead, I'm
I
sorry.
do kind of favor this.
Yeah, sorry.
Mr. Craig, does delaying this delays testing, right?
It
So
does.
does this also delays the solution when we push this off? Is that accurate?
Yeah, what they're trying to do is, as Commissioner Henderson said earlier, these chemicals migrate. They migrate into groundwater. And so they're trying to determine how big is the plume so that they can begin remedial action. And so that is a cause for delay, but I'm not qualified to say the significance of the delay, or what may or may not happen, or what it may or may not entail.
Mr. Garrett would like to make a comment.
I just wanted to point out that this top sheet of the packet that Mr. Craig handed out is our standard utility encroachment permit that we developed at the Transportation Department. And it's really for any utilities that request to be located in the right of way. So I just want you to understand it's not maybe the first time you've seen it, but it's just sort of an in-house form so we can keep up with who's doing what kind of work in the right of way. So it's not specific for this this venture.
Commissioner.
Not trying to be difficult, it's very hard for me to read this one piece of paper. Is it possible to get a larger, so we can see what's actually on significant information on there? I guess is the real question. I can't read any of it.
It's the map there, if you're holding it, if you're holding it like this, where the north arrow is pointing mostly north, to your left is Hazelbrand Road. Going left to right there is Waterford Road, and then those two roads that kind of go into the bottom of the page. I'm sorry, I can't remember the specific names. Settlers Grove Drive is one of them, I think. Road, and then Hidden Branch Way, I think, is the other one. But all the text on there is surveying text. In other words, the owner of the parcel, and then you have some bearings and distances and land lots. So it's all really surveying information. I think the point of the illustration is the red areas that are indicated on the map are the areas that SRG and their environmental consultant who's monitoring this issue, they've identified those areas for installing these wells based on some preliminary testing they've done. So the idea is really just to highlight where they want to put the wells in. I don't think the text itself is
All of those parallel lines are lot boundaries.
yes.
And the information inside those parallel lines is information to help you get back to the ownership of the property. So we can get you a larger one. It's not going to tell you a lot.
Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to say this and I'll be through. It's not that I'm trying to delay anything. I think it's about safety, about them being held accountable to possibly the health of this entire county. Because if there are large amounts, which I don't think it is, but I don't know because nobody has tested a creek that goes directly into their coving. TCE causes cancer. You could be drinking something that you really shouldn't be drinking. So we've got to hold those people accountable to make sure that that creek, at the very least, is clean. And the only leverage that we do have is them wanting to drill holes and draw the stuff out the ground so they can go run back up to EPA or EPD and say, well, it's good now. We are, it's good. And so they can go along with their life. But what about us, the people? That's what my concern is, the people. And you should be concerned because from the little research that I've done in Cedar Grove, and I know the people, because I go to the house and knock on doors. It's been 3 people who have passed away in Cedar Grove, and all of them had cancer. And I tell you, red flag flew up on top of my head now. It may be okay for some people, it may be all right. It's not okay with me. And, and we got enough stuff already in our communities. We got the landfill over there we're dealing with, and we got this big old thing over here in Cedar Grove that we're dealing with. So I think that we should slow down, make sure that the water is tested, make sure we're all safe, and move on.
Commissioner Sims has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tommy, I agree with Commissioner Henderson about the creeks and also what you said. Is that something I guess we can request? I don't want to slow up the process of getting these tests done. There are firms that do water quality testing and then deliver reports. I'm sure Tom's familiar with some. We can certainly order water quality testing done, and they'll probably need to take some grab samples in the creek, and then they probably would also test the sediments in the bed of the creek. But I don't think it's an unwise thing to do, just to try to understand the extent of the problem to beyond Settlers Grove subdivision.
I will say that I attended a meeting at the site, as you know, commissioners, and I probably should have updated you on this washout as well. There was a washout at Industrial Boulevard there at that detention pond, and it's going to require pipes to be replaced, and we have submitted to SRG estimates from a local contractor to replace that. And of course, it does not include any potential hazard now they're working on that, and attending that particular meeting was two gentlemen from EPD. And so I suspect that some of those requests will be honored based on the fact that we had those two individuals there.
One more question. Tommy, you mentioned the retention pond. Is there, I guess, any possibility that there could be some sediment in the actual storm drain, the catch basins, or whatever leading into the retention pond? And is that part of, I guess, being tested?
I know that Chairman, there was reports of corrosion in a corrugated pipe under the road just below the stormwater retention pond. And I know the Chairman sent a couple of people out there from the road department, and you would think that maybe the corrosion was caused by these chemicals coming out of the detention pond. And then the other thing is, at least one or more of the employees reported that they were almost overcome by the smell of what they thought was chlorine. Now, I don't know what they ran into, but it was very unpleasant to them, and I'm sure it's unpleasant to the neighborhood.
What's the pleasure of the board tonight? What would you like to do, Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table it.
Next meeting is May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. We got a motion and a second. I think it was 4 and 3.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got a motion to table. Any further discussion? All in favor? It carries. We're going to pause at this moment. We're going to take care of some zoning issues. We have one issue that had been tabled previously, as well as a couple of others. We have staff here tonight to help us with that. The first issue is found on pages 29 through 44. It was tabled from March the 17th. Staff want to give us an update?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The first item is appeal number APP 15-000187. This property is located in District 2 at 60 Radcliffe Trace, 0.88 acres. And this is an appeal of the decision by the Board of Zoning Adjustments to deny variance 14-000152. And the original request was to allow for one semi-tractor cab to be parked on the property. And this body continued the hearing until this month in order for the applicant to make a determination on what they would like to propose in order to be able to park the truck on the property and to be able to have it screened from view. And you'll see these slides are showing the house. You see where the truck is currently parked. Thank you. And behind the house is a deck. And what they are proposing is to extend their driveway. Again, you can see where the deck is located. To extend the driveway behind the deck, as you see in the picture here, and then to park the truck on that driveway extension behind the deck. According to the applicant, this would then screen the truck from view from the front of the house as well as from the adjacent properties because of the existing vegetation.
Just confirm, since we had a public hearing prior meeting, we don't necessarily have to have one tonight. Is there anybody? We're going. It's not really going to be a public hearing tonight, so we're going to probably go ahead and move in through this. Now we've got a district commissioner here that's in charge of that district. Would you like to? It's page. I don't know what page it's going to be on the iPad. 29 to 44.
quick question to, I guess, the staff. Zoning denied this 5-0?
Yes, it was unanimous.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, Mr. Chair, make a motion to deny VAR 14-000152.
It's 2 and 5. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passes. It's denied 4-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is for a future land use change, 15-000192 and rezoning 15-000193. This property is located in District 1 at the intersection of Sewell Road and Highway 142. Total acreage on the property is 132.48 acres. The future land use map is to request a change from agricultural forestry to rural residential, and the rezoning request is to change from agriculture to rural estates. The intention, the basis for the request is so that the applicant can create two 2-acre tracts that would then be deeded to his children so that they would be able to build a home in Newton County. And you can see here, this illustrates where the new tracts being circled would be created, and you can see the entire parcel there as well. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this petition.
Commissioners, I'm going to remind you that this is going to require 2 motions when it does come time. And at this point, I'm going to open a public hearing. The applicant and those in favor of the petition are allowed 10 minutes to address the board. In addition, 10 minutes are allotted for those in opposition to the petition. This 10-minute allotment does not include a response to any questions raised by commission members. Is the applicant present? Your time will begin when you speak. Please introduce yourself.
Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Mark Walton with Patrick & Associates, and I'm here to speak for Bill Stokes and George Stokes. Their request to change the land use plan and amend the zoning. This property has been in their family for the 50s, I believe. It was their father's, and George and Bill were raised there. They now live there, and George has a son and a daughter. And the daughter really wants to build a house very quickly, and so property is in conservation, so they can only remove 5 acres without breaking the covenant, and so they have decided to remove 2 acres for each of the 2 children with the all's blessing. And the daughter will begin construction very soon. They're excited to have a 3rd generation living on the family farm. And I'm here to answer any questions, and I'll save any time for rebuttal.
And this is District 1, Commissioner Douglas is not present because he's ill. Anybody like to ask a question of the applicant? Okay. Someone else that would like to speak in favor? Okay, at this time I'll ask anyone who would like to speak in opposition. At this time I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, we're going to need 2 motions. The first one is for, I guess, is this the future land use map first? 15-000192. Could I have a commissioner take the lead on this one?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve FLU 15-000192.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Now we need a similar motion for REZ 15-000193.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve REZ 15-000193 as presented.
5 and 2 on both of those. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. That one passes.
Thank you.
Item number 15.
The next item is modification 15-000001. This property is located in District 1 and 5090 Highway 212. The total acreage on the property is 73.61 acres. This is a request to modify condition number 2. You'll see that's the entire parcel. Condition number 2 of the zoning petition for a conditional use permit 05-008 to allow a change in the site plan. That condition tied the entire parcel as the site plan to the conditional use permit, and it's the request of the applicant to change that condition to allow for only 3.6 acres of that entire tract to become the site plan for that conditional use. My understanding is the balance of the acreage is to be placed in conservation.
This time I'll open a public hearing on case number MOD 15-000001. Is the applicant present? Come up and speak for him. State your name and address for the record, ma'am.
My name is Sally Dillon, 5090 Highway 212. And
Go ahead and tell us what you're wanting to do. Go ahead.
well, we currently have a business located in that 3 acres. My husband's had it for about 10 years, I think. And we want to separate that instead of having the entire property as commercial agricultural, just out one spot, which is actually our business. We're only open from 8 to 5. We're insurance adjusters, and I want to do the rest of it. I don't want to do anything with it, just conservation.
Any questions of the applicants? Okay, would someone else like to speak in favor? Thank you. Someone else like to speak in favor? All right, those that might oppose at this time. Someone who'd like to speak in opposition. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. Again, the commissioner, District 1 is not present tonight. Would someone else like to take the lead on this one? Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to approve MOD 15-00001 with staff recommended conditions.
It's 2 and 4. Any further discussion? All in favor? Approved.
Thank you. That concludes the zoning report for this evening.
Thank you very much. We appreciate staff. We'll return to our agenda, and speaking of staff, tonight we're blessed to have with us Michelle Kelly. Michelle is our finance director. Michelle, as well as a lot of other staff members, have worked very hard on our budget at this point. We appreciate everything you're doing for us, and we thank you for coming out tonight to be with us. So you're presenting first the monthly financials.
Yes, as you're all aware, Mr. Garrett has asked me to present the financials to you as part of the admission process. And you have these in your packet, so if you have any questions, please stop me. I'm sure you're all used to the new format now, right? with our new system. The first page we have is just our general fund expenditures by department. That last column will tell you who's in track and who's not. The next section of the report is our general fund revenues. Page 4 begins our general fund expenditures. These are rolled up per account. The last sections of the financial report address the water fund and solid waste. I did send an email after the financials were put in your packet. That's the report that you were used to seeing for the solid waste. And I have copies if you like them. If you have any questions.
I'll hand them out if you bring them here. I'll pass them around. Any questions of Michelle on the financial? Thank you. Commissioner Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michelle, on the BOC and the staff, I know you sent us out an email today with some additional breakdown because that line item is at 84%, and we should be at around, 75% at this point?
75.
And so we're over budget in the BOC and staff. Can you give us rationale for why we're over budget in general terms?
I know that this year we did try to separate finance from the BOC, so there's a little bit of guessing when it comes to who pays for what. That budget now has been separated out, so I would imagine that the budget going forward would be easier to parcel out. There usually are things that come to the BOC that are not budgeted for. But I don't have the detail with me, so I can't really address anything specifically.
I'm looking at the solid waste, and I'm looking at, we've gone through this numerous times, and I guess my question is not so much for Michelle, but for the other members of the board and perhaps Mr. Garrett and the chair. But we just seem to be stuck in this legal services where we haven't addressed the legal services budget. And it's not just Mr. Craig, it's the entire legal services. We're spending around $80,000 to $90,000 a month in legal services, somewhere close to $100,000 a month. We were supposed to have this addressed at our annual retreat, and supposedly it's on the agenda for April 28th. Is that still the case, that we're going to have a plan for how we address the legal services on April 28th?
There have been some discussions, some ongoing discussions. If that date was mentioned, I don't recall it, but we'll check and see.
Well, I guess the question that I have for the board is, what's the plan, since that trajectory just that slope keeps going in the same direction. We don't seem to be making any changes, and it looks like, if you look at the legal services for the solid waste, we're at this point, we're already $102,000 over budget, and we still have 2-3 months left to go. I think that what you've given us at this point is that it has a date of April 20th, but I think that only includes invoices up through March 30th, correct? So we have April, May, June. So 3 months left, and we've already exceeded our budget. And the same is true in the legal services for the Board of Commissioners. So I need to know what the plan is, and where is that money coming from? We've got to pay for it some way. How are we paying for it?
May I say something, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely, sir.
The expenditure for the landfill, this board asked me in October of 2013 responsibilities of disposing of the landfill. I put a lot of time and energy into developing the proposal that's under consideration now. It may not be accepted, it may be modified, but there was a lot of time and effort put into that. That's not something that's going to be repeated. That was $92,000 worth of the time that's reflected in the attorney's fees. The other thing is that I met with my bookkeeper earlier this week, and the trajectory for the first quarter of this year is actually downward significantly from the first two quarters of the fiscal year. So to say that the trajectory is still up, that's not correct.
So my question is, where's the money coming from to pay for this overage?
As with any overages that we experience in departments, at the end of the year, adjustments are made from other line items if they're available. And if it's not, we discussed this several times, and particularly on March 10th, in the budget presentation, any expenses, and several examples were given, any expenses not budgeted for or expended in excess of the budget amount, if there's not excess revenue to cover that expenditure, it would come out of fund balance.
And I'd like to mention, just having started recently on the third budget cycle that I've been involved in, I have never seen such painstaking efforts to look line by line. I know that Lisa and Michelle have met a number of times on the BOC. We're looking at that particular line item and have studied it very much and have shared with the county attorney's office, and we're looking at ways to make sure that that is an actual number based on what relatively have been spent in the past. And I will mention that not only is Public Works doing the same thing, I've seen other budgets. Today was a good example. We saw two where they're going line by line, looking at actuals, not just on legal, but on every item, and making sure that the amounts that are budgeted are the correct amounts for the future. So I've been impressed with the staff and the effort that they're making. So I do believe that legal services will be addressed as we go forward. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just a quick question is, how many pending cases do we have at present?
I know we gave out a litigation report at the last executive session. I don't know right offhand, significant number.
Right, absolutely. And I think it was about 15, if my mind is correct, the commission shows it wrong, cases that are pending. So to ask our county attorney, say, well, hey, look here, just drop these cases, and we just say, well, if we're over budget, drop them and forget about it. And what would happen to a case if we would just drop it? The other side will win it. And so I don't think at present that we can just ask, it's my opinion, that we can ask the county attorney to drop all these cases that we asked him to go out and deal with from our sheriff's office, from our clerk's office, all these cases are pending that we have to have a attorney to show up in court to kind of represent us. And so I understand that it takes a lot of money, but I also understand that some of these cases we just can't drop because if they could go behind that room back there, when we step out of here and go in there and look at the amount of suits that people will bring against the county, I think it would be a disservice to our constituents to just drop them. Because we'll spend more money in dropping them than we would if we would have to spend them, I believe. One last thing. We need to also, not only to address our county attorney as far as what he's spending, but we also need to look at what is actually all coming out of our general fund that's being spent. Money that comes out that never to be recouped. And maybe who's writing the check and who's signing the invoices. And so I'm looking forward to a work session so we can just put that all out on the table and and see who's asking, who's outspending fund balance.
Commissioner Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to, chime in a little bit on the discussion Commissioner Schultz brought up. First and foremost, I don't think Mr. Craig has done anything this board hasn't asked him to do. So the problem, in my opinion, it comes down to the 5+ chair that sits up here. You know, I'm a business owner, Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Schultz. If somebody comes to your business and wants you to do something, more likely to do it, you're going to send an invoice and you expect to be paid for it. But if nobody doesn't bring you that business, you can't charge for it. So dealing with these high, or overages that we're having, it all comes from the 6 of us up here. So, in my opinion, this 6 plus county manager need to get together. We missed our retreat, which that was a big discussion that we did not get a chance to do. But us 6, 7. So I keep adding in, Ms. Jackie, 8. We need to seriously sit down and talk about the plan. How are we going to lower our legal fees? Is that, putting policies in place? Is that, there's several options out there. I think we've asked the county manager to look at some, and like I said, we missed our retreat, so we didn't get a chance to review those. But we're right in the middle of budget, and we have to review that. We got to figure out ways of trimming our budget so we can, live up to the raises that we offered our sheriff and firefighters, and also the raises we plan on, at least anticipate we plan on doing for the rest of the employees. But we can't do that without trimming some things in our budget. It's not just legal fees. There's several things that we're going to have to look at real seriously in the next 30 to 45 days. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michelle, I just want to thank you for working with us and providing the information. You've been very good about providing it in a timely manner, and it's a real pleasure to have now a financial report that we can work through. I think that that's been part of the problem up to this point, is that we haven't had the good data that we have now. So I really appreciate that. I would like to echo what Commissioner Sims says, and that's many of us are in business for ourselves. And when we see that there are certain items that go over budget, we have to make tough choices. Last board meeting, we saw that we had to give the sheriff's department an increase. Well, that money has to come from somewhere. And when we have overages, that money has to come from somewhere. And the one thing that we don't want to do is get in the habit of going into fund balance. So we really have to make some tough choices. I don't think any of us question the type of legal advice that we're getting. It's a matter of dollars and cents. And we have to have a budget that we can live within. And it doesn't mean that we just raise the budget, because we still don't have the money. If we raise the budget, we have to live within our means. And that may mean that we have to make some tough choices and decide, well, perhaps this is not a battle we want to fight. So, but I do want to tell you how much I appreciate what you've done and what Mr. Garrett, you've done to make sure that we have the information that we now have in a way that we can read it.
I need a motion to approve the financial. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for the delay. I'd echo what Commissioner Schultz said. We should appreciate your voice, Ms. Kelly. She was instrumental in choosing the software that we have now. And Commissioner Douglas and Commissioner Schultz and I, we sat through a budget work session last week, and it was highly praised as far as the rollout to HR and other areas. So I appreciate your voice on that and the presentation tonight. But again, I'd echo the same thing that same thing in early January. We unanimously confirmed Mr. Craig as the county attorney. That must mean that we approve of the services being provided. So I don't think that's any question. And there was a question that was asked, and this is probably me stepping in it right now, but the money that was approved for the sheriff's department last week, where does that money come from? 2 weeks ago. Where does that money come from? Where does it come from now to June the 30th and then after July 1st? Because we didn't approve raises that stopped on June the 30th. It flows into next year and continues. So where does that money going to come from? I'm probably asking myself that. I'm not really expecting an answer. But in addition to that, if you look back at the historicals on legal fees for the last 5 or 6 years, every year this board or the previous board has approved a budget substantially below what is realistic, what is reality. So how can you then ask, why are we over budget? If you go ask the sheriff, who I've talked to a number of times in private, why are you over budget, Sheriff? He says, because you said it too low. He's right. He's a sheriff. So again, I do think it comes back to this board. If we're going to be realistic, let's be realistic. Let's talk about the right millage rate. Let's listen to the people and ask, let them weigh in on what we want to do. But be very mindful that it does affect that millage rate, and it does affect every taxpayer and business in this county. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, I need a motion to approve the financial statement. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passes 3-1. Administrative services as well. Approval of the check register, Michelle. If there's any questions? Comment, please.
I just want to apologize to Michelle. I know you're sitting up here.
All of this, me too. I'm going to do it for her right now too. This is your first appearance in front of us, and I've watched you for almost 3 years now, and you do a magnificent job of leading your department. And I know this has been a little bit difficult for you tonight. We'll buy you lunch tomorrow. Okay. Motion to approve, please. Someone. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passes. Lunch tomorrow. Commissioner, County Manager, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate Michelle's work. And, I may be the show horse when we give those presentations, but she's the one who puts all that information together, and she has a fantastic understanding of not only our budget, but our overall financial status here in the county. So I just wanted to say that. I thank her for her work.
Item number 11 is a proposal from the Carl Vincent Institute. Tom, I guess you're going to handle that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a 2-page, 3-page proposal before you for facilitators for the solid waste landfill citizen committee that's ongoing. First meeting tomorrow night. The facilitators, if the board chooses to proceed in that direction, wouldn't be present tomorrow night, but their scope of work is outlined in that memo. It includes 4 meetings, 2 facilitators. The facilitators are Langford Holbrook with the Carl Vinson Institute of Government, and he has also suggested we bring in Ray Rawls, who is actually with a different institute. I believe it's the Fannin Institute, if I'm not mistaken, with the university. They lay out the scope of work, and I believe in the last meeting there was some clarification given to the questions, the topics to be addressed by the Citizens Committee. So some of that's in the memo that you see there, sort of a request for clarification on that. This was being developed kind of at the same time that meeting was taking place, so but they left some of that wording in there. So the chairman and I met with Langford Holbrook probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now to discuss this, and as he was preparing this proposal for your consideration. So if y'all have any questions, if I can answer them, I'll try to.
Before we take any questions, I wanted to mention too, at ACCG this past week, Langford did the class, and I tell you, he's absolutely fabulous. Way too much energy for me, but he had a lot of caffeine that day apparently. And if anybody can do it, I don't know the person from Fannin, but this guy is really, I don't know if he's Einstein or whether he's Mark Twain, or maybe he's a mix of the two. When you see him, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I have very good confidence. I know it is an expenditure of $12,500, but the citizens that are here, that live out near the Spring Hill community, are going to appreciate the fact that he's going to give a fair opportunity for people to participate that are in that committee. So I'm going to say that I highly recommend him. And are there any questions from Commissioner Schultz?
So I have a high regard for the Carl Vinson Institute. And, I have had a class with Langford in the past, and I have a high regard for them. But I guess my question is, what is going to be the total budget for this committee to do what they need to do to get the information that they need? Are they going to be able to bring in additional consultants, and what is that cost going to be? Are we going to set a ceiling, or are we just going to give them basically whatever they need, we'll give them? So I think that we have to look at this particular proposal in the context of what's going to be the total budget for that committee to operate and get the information that they need to make the decisions that we have charged them with.
I think Commissioner Schultz raises a good question, because there's actually members of the panel, or at least one member of the panel, that is already asking for professional services to be provided from a current county contractor. So that's a very good question. Does the committee members have that authority? I certainly think we've approved the committee. We need to support them. There were questions today on if the committee was actually meeting tomorrow night. Clearly they're meeting at 6 in the admin.
Without the facilitator tomorrow. Without the facilitator.
Yes, sir. So, thank you.
Commissioner Henderson.
I guess the question I'm asking is that I thought that was what this board wanted, to meet, because the question I had posed that when we started talking about this was have a up or down vote. It's either voted up or voted down. And that wouldn't cost anything other than the fact that we voted. So now we're doing exactly what I think Commissioner Schultz, you wanted, and the majority of the board wanted. And now we're saying that maybe it costs too much money. Well, we can save it. I still say, let's vote up or down. So, I mean, why would we want to put ourselves through this? We can save the money. Still vote up or down vote. So, but I do know the gentleman. We had a class, Mr. Chairman, we were together, and he was very excellent. He made the day go by fast. We came in about 8:30, and we left about 2:30. And I was very thankful. And we had it was a very good class. He had a very good presentation. So he's going to be good.
This gentleman works for ACCG for
Corbin. Did you have a comment before? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this question is, for the chairman of that committee, Mr. Garrett. Last time we talked, we were trying to make sure this committee had a vision, a goal. What were they trying to accomplish in this committee? Because as I stated before, solid waste is just a wide open topic, and if we're talking about consultants and everything, think they could, I don't know if you've come up with that goal for that committee, but I'd like to know. Thank you.
I'll make a comment that Ms. Schultz has discussed two different questions for that committee, and then I'm going to go ahead and expose executive session. At one time, we discussed an executive session and looking at the contract, and I thought at that time it was a consensus of the board to look at the contract that had been placed on the table. And so I found back in my notes that the two questions did not really, as I stated before, related to the EPD requirements. It does not address those, and it also does not address the legal questions concerning the lawsuit. So I think this board also needs to make that decision tonight in open session so that the members of that panel have the greatest success of being able to bring back to us some recommendations. Again, it is a very noble thought that we're involving our citizens in our decision making. We must enable them in some way to be able to give them the tools that they need. And it's my opinion, if they need I believe it's Smith Gardner Engineering, that we ought to authorize, if they do need some questions answered for Smith Gardner, to provide those answers. They are the people who are experts. And our panel, of course, with the exception of a couple of people, necessarily aren't experts, although they have lived in that area all their lives. I'm sure they would love to have the opportunity to hear from Smith Gardner as well as others. So that's the two decisions I'd like us to make tonight, in addition to approving the $12,500. So, Commissioners, I'd like your views on that. Commissioner Schultz.
Well, I think Commissioner Sims asked Mr. Barrett questions that I'd like to hear.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Well, I think you answered it, as far as the two questions that Commissioner Schultz mentioned during the last meeting, and also, the issue about the settlement agreement that is on the table that was discussed as well, whether that's a viable option. I think those are the three main topics for discussion. After the Tuesday night or the Wednesday morning after the Tuesday night meeting where the citizens panel was established and I was asked to lead it, I asked for the board's support to solicit this proposal from the Carl Vinson Institute. If you look at the resumes of the two people who were proposed to do this facilitation, I think you'll see that they bring a combination of expertise that isn't landfill, solid waste expertise. We have engineers who did the corrective action plan for us, Smith Gardner, who we can call on for that. But this isn't a solid waste question. It's a solid waste finance, socioeconomic question. I mean, it's a community question. There's just a wide array of issues that some are technical in nature, some are not science and engineering in nature at all. And, for us to pick and choose an engineer to come in and talk to us, that's fine. And, engineers don't know everything in the world. I know that might strike y'all as odd for me to say that. But, there's a lot of other aspects to this that aren't engineering related. And I do think that the one facilitator is an attorney who has experience dealing with community issues that are technical in nature, but have ramifications far beyond that. The finances, in one sense, are the simplest part of this, really. I mean, the dollars and cents are pretty straightforward in a lot of ways. But, we do have the gentleman from Lamar County lined up to come in. He operates a program there. Lamar County operates a program there through the Solid Waste Authority that's had a lot of success. So from a business model standpoint, it's not a business, it's a government enterprise. So from that standpoint, I think he'd be a good resource. So I think that the facilitators do bring a certain amount of credibility to the process, that if we're left with just an engineer, or actually I think myself included, there'd be 3 on the panel. Even 3 engineers may not come up with the right answer on their own. So I think this is really the avenue we need to proceed down.
Commissioner Schultz.
One last question. Payment for this would come out of the professional services budget, and we have money in the professional services budget to pay for this?
That's correct. We have the BOC professional services line item.
Commissioner Maddox.
We made this motion a month ago, and to seek community input with Mr. Garrett as a lead, and we voted 4-1 on that. I think we need to continue that support. And even if the 3 engineers and the rest of the citizens come back and they don't have the exact right answer, they may be able to inform us of some things we don't know today. In addition to that, I think it would be incredibly helpful, because after this process is complete, you've got 5 or 6 members of our community, plus I'm sure some articles in the media. I think that process will help to educate our community on the situation in front of us. It's obvious from the work session we had a month or so ago, this board hasn't really communicated where we're at and the challenges that we have. So I think we should approve this as is, and if the fees go over the $12,500, they should come back before us. If the board is ready, I'll make that motion.
So what's the motion then? To approve the document? Approve this contract? Okay. We got a motion and a second. So that's going to be. Any further discussion at this point on it? All in favor? It's 4-0. Now, to me, the only unfinished business is what is their charge? What is their duty? We're going to discuss this later. We're going to make sure we all come to consensus on it, because I think we got 2 different ideas that have developed.
I'll give my 2 cents since I was the lucky one to make that particular motion. Motion and the support of the board put this in the hands of Mr. Garrett for a review, a high-level review of our solid waste management model. I mean, to me, that's clear, but it's also clear that 3 or 4 meetings may not be sufficient. This gentleman from Lamar County is an excellent resource to bring in. They've got the model I think we should duplicate. There's a very diverse mix of rational citizens on this panel. I think there's enough responsibility there to kick some things around tomorrow night. And if there's specific questions from that panel, I think they should bring them back to us. And we'll go from there. That's my thoughts.
Well, I don't know if we need a motion. I wanted a consensus. I want to be sure that we are able to direct them. Anybody else want to give their view tonight? Commissioner Henderson, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I thought the objective was whether or not we were going to use this company to run our landfill. And as this is what we were talking about, and I think since you exposed a little bit about executive session, I'm going to expose a little bit more. It is about the recycling centers, and it was about them coming back with recommendations whether or not we should keep the recycling center. And I can understand what that had to do with whether or not we want to prioritize our landfill and let this particular company run it. So I'm trying to figure out, are we going to put too much on this citizen review board or panel of people that we them to come back with, I guess, answers that I thought had nothing to do with what we were trying to do. So I'm just trying to figure out what is their text? What do we want to do?
I think we owe it to
Absolutely.
them to make a target that they can aim for, and I'm afraid if we make it too broad, to make them successful or to get them in a position to better be successful, you got to make sure that target is clear for them. Commissioner Schultz.
Well, I think that we need to go back to the motion that was made, and let me just read the motion because it's in the minutes that we approved tonight. It says, the motion made by Commissioner Maddox, seconded by Commissioner Sims, to table the current landfill proposal by Green Hill to allow a minimum 60-day independent review free of conflicts to be led by the county manager. This review should also explore other options and opportunities for our solid waste management program. That's the motion that we voted on. That's what we charged the Citizens Committee to do. That's pretty clear.
Explain to me once again how does the landfill fit into that? I mean, how does the recycling center fit into that? Commissioner.
I'm just reading the motion that we approved, and that all of that is part of our solid waste management program.
Yes. Okay, so the motion that Commissioner Maddox made include the recycling center.
If you look at it from a macro view, from a 30,000 feet view, and you start talking about a solid waste management model, where you're at today and where you could be 10 years from now, there's things out there that as solid waste management, as the industry has matured, there's quite a few products and services and equipment out there that the county doesn't have, has never even looked at. Commissioner Sims has had a great idea for at least 3 years. I've heard him talk about curbside service throughout the entire community. Why wouldn't we explore that? Why wouldn't we explore doing things differently out at the landfill? Why wouldn't we allow the citizens to better understand the legal situation? They need to bring in Mr. Craig one evening. I'm sure he'll show up. That's what the man does. Commissioner Sims, I think he just, regrettably, I was not able to go to Savannah. There's a gentleman down there who's a mayor, and he also works for a solid waste management company. He would love to show up at this panel, if I heard you right. He has volunteered to show up at this panel and to just have an open discussion about volumes coming from a neighboring community, and instead of hauling them somewhere else. And, there's a revenue issue, so there's a financial component. So that motion reads, they've got the ability to look at everything. It does not say they have to come back in 60 days. It says a minimum of 60 days. But the board also needs to understand, I know what's on Commissioner Sims' mind right now. We've got to figure something out because this program is running at a deficit. And whether that's a decal system, user fee, higher tipping rates, more volume, call it what you will, something's got to change. And I committed to this to Mr. Middleton, the Honorable Mr. Middleton, 2 years ago. I'm not sure how can we pursue anything.
Commissioner Sims.
Well, like the rest of the board, I guess I don't have too much to say. You guys kind of stolen some of the things I was thinking about saying, but for going into my 5th year, sitting up here on this board, from day one I've been concerned with landfill, recycling centers, just because it's an item in the red. How can we make them at least get to a break even? I don't know if we'll ever get to where we're in the black, but at least we can get to the break even. That's something I've always wanted to. I wanted this board to go after. Make sure we're using every dollar the citizens give us. wisely. With that being said, this panel has a huge task ahead of it. With that being said, we were just down in Savannah, and Commissioner, you're right. I talked to several companies that I'm going to follow up on this week. Some recycling companies, some landfill companies, some curbside pickup companies. This has to be something not only this committee has to work on, the citizens have to work on it. Us as commissioners, we have resources that they don't have. They have resources that we may not have. We're going to have to work at this together. We got to get the community of Spring Hill involved because they're going to be the ones mostly impacted by this. We have to get them involved. I have no problem with the 12-5 for consultation. My biggest gripe so far is having this. It seems like it's like trying to say world peace. I mean, that's how big this task is to me for this committee. It is so big that I don't want them to be unsuccessful at this. That's why I wanted a very obtainable goal that they can go in and come back 60, 90, 180 days and say, we did this. This is what this community wanted. Have something concrete that they achieved. I just don't want meeting after meeting. God knows we go through enough meetings to sometimes not get anything accomplished. Don't want to waste the citizens' time. These guys have volunteered their time, and I know my appointee, she's been all over the place, researching. I commend Ms. Brooker. She's on top of it. But she's putting in a full-time job just to serve on a couple hour a week or every other week committee. That's a lot. I think we're asking of the citizens. I think we need to do, and this goes back 2 weeks ago, I think we should have done a little bit more on our side before we got to this point. And it's not just this board. This is ask anybody in Spring Hill. This has been a 20-year, 30-year problem. This just didn't land in our plate last week. So, like I said, just going back, I'm okay with the consultant. I lean to, I guess, county manager. He had some specific points and I think some obtainable goals that this committee can achieve. And I know, like any other committee, they're going to get in there and they're going to have their 3 goals, and it's going to be conversation. It's going to be conversation about other things that's wrong with that solid waste, and that's fine. But I ask that committee to please, whatever we come up with tonight, try to tackle that first, and we all together, board, citizens, committee, need to work together to figure out how we're going to get our solid waste back into the black or back to break even. It's going to take all minds, not one and not 5 up here and not 5 in the citizens committee. Thank you.
I'll get you in just a second. I'm going to make a remark in respect of the District 5 Commissioner's motion. We did provide this for Langford, Holbert, and he felt it was somewhat broad, and he was the one who originally asked us to narrow the target down. So maybe at this point we can get him to, it doesn't appear that we can come to a good consensus. We might go all night. My opinion would be that we ought to go to the contract that was on the table and start there. I thought we had that consideration in executive session the other day, but apparently I was under the wrong impression. And at this point, they're going to meet tomorrow. Maybe we can get some comments from the committee members that have already been working so hard at this point, because I'm afraid that if we don't draw them in, we're going to help them be unsuccessful. And that's my biggest fear, that our indecision at this moment is going to create a problem down the road. So I think we ought to try to narrow this a little bit without taking much more time. Is there any chance for a consensus tonight, or I'm going to move on? Commissioner, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allow me to make my final comment. I think it's unfair, and this is my opinion. I think it's unfair to the citizens of the Spring Hill community to be asked to be asked to come back with us, if that being the case. We don't know what the case is right now. To say whether or not we're going to put stickers on those sacks and have the citizens of New County pay another tax. I don't think that's fair to ask to do that, especially since they all they asked was said we do not want a regional landfill. That's all they said. We don't want it. So we don't want it. And we asked them to go back and do more and more work that we easily do. This commission said we want to put a district tax on anything. We just raise our hand up, get guidance from the county attorney, and it becomes, somewhat of a law that we have to do it to a certain degree. And so to ask them to do tests, that's really our job, in my opinion. So all we should test this committee with, if we're going to ask them to do something, is whether or not they want a regional landfill in that community. And, which I'm prepared, myself personally, to vote no. Thank you.
The District 2 Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We packed out this place 2 or 3 times for one reason. The proposal that was at stake. So I think first thing the committee needs to do is what the chairman said, is take a look at that proposal, up or down. We can add to their agenda, but they need to start somewhere. It's been 30 days. We've already wasted 30 days of their time. Let them start, and let that be the first thing they tackle. We can come back and add more to it. Please give them a starting place so they can get started. I think they've done a lot of research. They've spent a lot of time. Each committee member takes this committee seriously. So I don't think we need to delay them any further.
Do I get an amen from any of the commissioners at that point?
Amen.
I got 2. I got 1 amen there. I need a third. All right, we got it right there. Now, Commissioner Schultz, go ahead with your comment.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that that's exactly where we start. However, if we're going to spend $12,500 on a consultant, that doesn't need to be where we end.
But are we in agreement that's where they're going to begin? Yes. All right. Let's move on. Where are we at? We are looking at... I think... And we voted. I thought we voted. We're through. It's just been a long time. We got it recorded by the clerk over here. Item number 12. And I'm just going to make a remark about the pay raises. All of our employees are important. Michelle was here a few minutes ago. She has a critical role in our government. We're given the privilege by the state of Georgia. They require us really to provide services for our citizens, all 102,000. The sheriff's office and the fire services raises were given on April the 7th, and I certainly agree that they're all well deserved. And understandably, morale of the balance of our employees, some 225 employees, has been affected. And I've heard it. And I'd like for us to see how we can make things right for that balance of 225 or so employees. I'm not sure how we're going to afford the raises that were given on the 7th, or at least sustain those for now. But we gave those raises, and now we've got to make sure that we make it right with those others. And I know that I met with the county manager and Michelle this morning. We talked about this. I'm not clear on what the percentage increase of the sheriff's office got. I'm not clear at this point because of the different pay scales, even in fire services. But we've got to do something for our employees. I don't know what it is, a percentage. I don't know if it's a flat amount. But we got to show them that they're important to us as well. I don't necessarily want to vote tonight, but I do want us to discuss it. And I don't think we should wait much more than Cinco de Mayo next time on the 5th of May to make some kind of action plan to take care of that. I'll just open up the floor for discussion at this point. Who would like to go first? Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 4 or 5 months ago, we charged county manager and county chair to try to find funds to give the sheriff deputies a raise. I guess what I'm asking is for county manager, county chair, go and see if you can shake a few more dollars. This is something that anticipated us looking at during budget and coming back with a plan. But I agree, our employees have suffered way too long. So I'm just asking county manager, county chair to bring us something back.
Other comments from members of the board? Commissioner Schultz. I saw it go peripheral.
I was going to let everybody else talk. Well, I certainly agree that we need to be very mindful of the work that all of our county employees do for this county and for all the citizens. And, as a business owner, you're only as good as your employees. And for way too long, we have put all of the woes and all of the cuts on the backs of the county employees. And what happens when you do that, you start to lose employees and you lose your best resource. And so I definitely agree that when we start losing those resources, everybody pays a price for that, not just those individuals whose salaries have been frozen, but all the citizens pay that price. So I would encourage Mr. Garrett to look for ways in which we can incorporate that into our upcoming budget. I noticed in the email that we were sent today that he would like to reference the wage and hour study, the salary study that was initiated by Columbia County, or that was a comparison with Columbia County. And I think that's a good way to begin. Anytime you have data that you can reference to use as a benchmark, that's helpful. So I would concur with Commissioner Sims, and I would like to charge Mr. Garrett to. Now, we're giving you a lot in these last few weeks that you're going to be with us, but you're up to the task, I'm sure.
We also have a fine interim HR director that may be of good help to us. Commissioner.
Thank you, Michelle. I think it was about 6 months, maybe about 10 months ago when we first started thinking and talking about a raise for the sheriff department. And one of the first things that I see, and I see quite a lot of our employees. And then because Commissioner Douglas was not here this evening, this first thing you raised, I said, well, yeah, I changed my motion. I changed my talk to all our employees. And everybody said, well, no, so we just going to just talk about the sheriff department because they're the ones whom our citizens have came up and told us that they want us to do something because we were losing our deputy at that point. And so they told us. And so it has always been in my mind and my talk was not vote just one department, not just for our first responders, our fire, our sheriff department, and our fire department, but all our employees. We came back once again back then because we said because of budget constraints that we were only talking about the sheriff department. And then when we, Tom Garrett, our county manager, I think first part of the year, he had came up with a plan to do exactly what we had asked him to do, to find the money to give raises to our sheriff department, and we found a little extra to go ahead and give to our firefighters, and that was good. But just as our chairman has said, we just, we need to find a way to help all our employees, give everybody, like Commissioner Sims said, that's what we need to do, because they represent us out in the field. But I can tell you one thing I do know, and I'll kind of end on this. Sandy and I, we were coming from Kearney on Access Road this evening, and there had been a wreck. And because there was no deputy there, there was a good Samaritan standing outside the street telling people to go around the wreck. When we passed by, we saw that there was a lady kind of in the car, so I immediately told Sandy to call 911. But by the time before she could call 911, we heard a patrol officer, a party officer, in a black and white car coming in Access Road to the accident. So I'm saying to all of us that when something bad happens, we need a deputy there or a firefighter to make sure that they're going to be found. Now, I personally said, this is what I told my wife, I said, had we get our officers better, then we wouldn't have to be trying to think about calling. Maybe possibly there wouldn't have been a good Samaritan outside trying to direct traffic, and we had our full staff of officers that Sheriff Brown had originally asked us to kind of help save, as he said one time, stop bleeding. So, we provide services for our citizens, and they deserve these services, and we need to do what we need to do in order to protect and make sure these services are provided by our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll try to be short, Mr. Chairman. Voice is getting hoarse tonight. First of all, I want to say to the community that I think you've heard quite a few times where the board has, even tonight, has continued to put things on Mr. Tom Garrett. And, that's because we know him. He's a good man, very, very educated, and usually delivers truth with a little bit of charm instead of sarcasm or bluntness. And you will be missed, Thomas. It's been real nice getting to know you. And if you guys don't know the man, he's not a Boy Scout, he's an Eagle Scout, times two, I believe. But challenging Mr. Garrett with finding money for a pay increase for the rest of the organization. He's our county manager today. He's not a magician. The increase that I feel the employees will get next year, I do think it will continue the pattern. I think there will be an increase that continues the pattern that we've set over the last year and a half. But my fear is it's going to pale in comparison to the increase that was voted on 2 weeks ago. I don't see everybody in the organization getting $1 an hour. I don't see that. So we need to understand there's a morale issue today, but it's going to be there in the future. The magician at this point, I think, may be Mr. Marcus Jordan, and what he tells us on property values and how that correlates to our millage rate and our revenue stream. That is the key number, and I'm not sure when he will deliver that. Do we know when we'll have that number? Is it late May?
You're quick to the draw. Go ahead. I'll make some comments if you don't cover them. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had a couple of members of the board ask for Mr. Jordan to come and give a report to the full board, and he is scheduled for Cinco de Mayo to be here before the board and give his update on the digest. As you you all know, we've been fighting this schedule with the digest for several years now, ever since Commissioner Douglas's friends under the Gold Dome changed the assessment deadlines, the appeal periods, etc. They lengthened the overall process 60 or 90 days, which makes the deadline for the digest. And when I say the deadline for the digest, we can't do it any earlier because there's a process for when the notices have to go out. There's a process for when property owners get to appeal the notices. The deadline is June 23rd this year, if I'm not mistaken. So he'll be able to give us an update in May. The final digest won't be until the last week of June. All the while, we're going through a budgeting process that, I guess there's two ways to look at it. Are we budgeting to a millage rate, or are we budgeting for an organization and their needs? And they're not, you can't separate the two, and I understand that. And I had some comments about the raises.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I guess I'm being long-winded tonight, but, the board did ask me, I think it was November, maybe December, to look at the requests from public safety, from the sheriff, and from the fire chief. Last week, for those, I think there were a couple of citizens who were in our budget group upstairs when HR did their presentation, and I've seen parts of that, but I hadn't seen that particular presentation until that day. I knew the budget side of it, but I didn't know some of the other statistical side of it until they really put it down in front of you. And you look at the number of separations, county employment, being over 90 for the past 2 or 3 years. We only have 600 employees, and we're separating, either we're firing or people are resigning and leaving. It's over 90 people per year. And that retention is an issue at all levels of the organization, not just the frontline people who are every day dealing with the citizenry, whatever the situation might be for fire or sheriff or roads, but for middle management, it's all the way through the organization. We've had this debate back and forth whether there should be a cutoff point for who gets raises. Only people making a certain amount, only people making up to $10 an hour, only making up to $15 an hour. I'm here to say, and I think anybody who's been a part of an organization, if you do that, if you lose your mid-management, your frontline supervisors, you're destroying what gives the organization a chance to be efficient. Two of the mid-level managers at the sheriff's department who I knew personally, and why did they leave? I don't know all the circumstances. I know they were rising stars. One's a police chief in the city of Canton. One's the criminal investigation division manager for the city of Brookhaven. And we put years and years of service, or years and years of training into them, and they gave good service during that period of time. But yes, they were higher earners than an entry-level deputy. That's true. But they also had extremely good qualifications. They had extremely good experience, and they were rising stars. They were the people that you need to make an organization efficient. The hope is not to just keep increasing the amount of money that goes to employees. That's not the hope, just to blow out the top with money. That's crazy talk. The hope is to retain qualified employees who can make the organization more efficient, thereby reducing our personnel costs. You think about the costs associated with 90 separations out of 600 employees. The cost of that, the sheriff's presented it multiple times. The cost of that is tremendous. And a large majority of those separations are coming from public safety. I think that if I'm misquoting the sheriff, you can tell me, I want to say it's over 40 from the sheriff's department in calendar year 2014. I think it was 15 or 16 from the fire department. So if you look at those percentages, I think the retention or the lack of retention in those departments highlights them as needing some attention for their department. When when I met with you all in January, I mean, I think I was a proponent for making sure everybody had some sort of raise. If anybody got it, everybody got it. You know, what was done in public safety wasn't a percentage raise. It was a salary restructuring, which is the right approach, in my opinion. You know, giving everybody 1% or everybody 2%, that's not merit-based. It's not qualification-based. That's not anything-based. That's blanket raises, which is okay if it's a cost of living type thing. But when you've been 7-8 years without any cost of living raises, the problem is that you're off kilter with the market in a lot of cases. So I did prepare some numbers here based on some conversations we had. If you're talking about the 250, 270 employees not included in the sheriff's under his direction and not included in the fire department's direction, it would be approximately a 1% raise for 12 months for those remaining employees is approximately $125,000. Now, I didn't calculate every single person. I did some estimation, but that's the order of magnitude.
Does that include benefits?
Yes, sir. Now, you can take multiples of that if you want 2%, 3%. Of course, it compounds itself, if you start doing it a little bit. But, my recommendation would be to, and my approach has been with hiring Mr. Kerr. I'll pick on Lloyd since he's still here, long after the zoning portion of the meeting's over. Is if we could hire competent, experienced department heads, and they can look at if they have sub-managers, if they can make sure that the right people in the right spots there, we can improve the overall health of the organization. I would recommend looking at the salary survey in order to restructure the salaries across the county and move to what the chairman has said many times, a merit-based system. It's not totally out of whack with other competing counties and cities, which is who we're competing with. The private industry doesn't hire a whole lot of sheriff's officers. Other than private security, I guess. We're competing with other counties, other cities for those jobs. Fire's the same way. So that would be my recommendation.
And I want to just add, in spending some time with my fellow commissioners from around the state, we're not alone. It's the same story. Because of the economy and the state we've been in since 2008, they're falling prey to the same thing. Municipalities do have a little bit of an advantage over us. And I want to remind everybody in the audience, because there's going to come a time, sometime in late June, we're going to set a millage rate. 70% of our budget right now goes to the employees when you consider the salaries and the benefits. 70%. And we're only using 30% to give them the tools they need, whether it's Sheriff's Office for deputies' bullets or whether it's for our new computer system for our finance department. So we're really, that's what we do. We provide services. That's what the state requires us to do. So 70% of our $47.5 million budget are our employees. And for everybody sitting out there to listen now, only about 18 or 19 million is directly a result or related to the millage rate. So you'll have to, we're talking about having to raise that in some cases to be able to satisfy the real needs. The majority of our budget doesn't come through property taxes. They come from other sources. So I think that's maybe a little bit of education tonight. Well, I feel a lot better. I think it's time for citizen comments at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get us a little break in. We'll come back at 8:30. Commissioners, let's find our way back to our seats. All right, let's find our seats. Thank you for having your seat. Nothing was settled. I didn't hear anybody. Back in session, and I want to make one note for the record. Commissioner Maddox did not vote when we were discussing the SRG decision. I want to point that out. And for the record, I did not say that I wanted to raise property taxes. Just for the record. I know. And now let's go to comments from the citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being here and waiting patiently. Please keep your comments constructive, no profanity. Personal attacks aren't what we're here to hear tonight. Unsubstantiated facts are also not allowed. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes each.
I'll let y'all off last month. This will be the last time I got to write my name down, probably until January 7th, 2017.
Wait a minute now. You can't do that to us without telling us where you're going.
So millage rate's gonna be dropped as promised to 10.6 this year. That's where it was before y'all.
10.91.
Oh yeah, 10.6 is where they said we could have went last year. I got a quote of the night. A long habit of not thinking a thing wrong gives it a superficial appearance of being right. That's from Thomas Paine, 1776. It's time to cut our losses on Bear Creek. Take that can and put it in the recycle bin. It's time to move on and start solving other problems and cut this albatross, this bad decision that was made 20 years ago. A county with a population of newts, we should have at least 10 people qualifying for office in every position up for grabs in 2016. Citizens that have ideas, please step forward with your ideas and your platforms to give the voters a choice. We should never have anybody going in uncontested. This would be the best citizen group that we could put together between now and next election. Let the citizens view the ideas and platforms for the voters and give them choices. I can no longer stand around and at least not try to help stop the systematic, financial, and environmental deterioration of our county. Please join me against me or in other positions in our county, and let's go out, bring our platforms out, and give the voters a choice in 2016. Let's stop the bleeding in our county. If not for yourselves, for your children and for your grandchildren. I don't own a business, so I would be working for the citizens.
Shirley Taylor, and I don't make it emotional. Excuse me. I feel like I was sliding a little bit because I didn't get a chance to explain everything. The zoning board did turn down our proposal, but it was for the truck. Excuse me. The truck being parked in the driveway. It was tabled so we could come up with an idea to have it shielded. You did, and I don't think that we were given due consideration. All we are trying to live and let live. My husband did not have a choice. He had to take this job. He's out of town. We only wanted the variance for 5 years. That's all. We were willing to do everything we could, take everything we could to oblige the 2 families out of 95 that objected to this. That is less than 1% of our subdivision. I had over a third of our subdivision sign a petition and write letter, and that supported us. The sign was out there, and if anybody else wanted to oppose, we could have. They didn't, so it didn't matter to them. I could have gotten more, but I wasn't able to get to everyone because they're not home all the time. But anyway, the purpose of a variance and the definition of a variance is an official decision document, that that allows someone to do something that is not usually allowed by the rules? What is the purpose for offering the citizens a variance if you're not going to even let them explain or propose, or even if you're not even going to consider it? I just felt like it was already decided. There was no sense in me showing up. We did a lot of work. We put our heart and our soul. My husband will not get time with his family because of the time he has to drive. It is not parked there every day. It is only parked there on the weekends, and sometimes not even then. I apologize for getting emotional, but this was very, very important to us, and I do not feel like we were given due consideration. The only consideration I feel like we were given is when the commissioner does this, ask them to be tabled and give us another chance. Thank you.
Y'all miss me? I hadn't been here in a couple months. My name is Josh McKelvey, 65 Brookline Parkway. Our first statement, I've got 3 questions for you guys. The first one had to do with this lady here. I think, once again, you guys' rash decision to just rush through things and not listen to the committee or to your citizens, that was a shame. And I think you guys had egg on your face after that decision you just made. But my second comment here is I've met 2 business owners in the last few months, just when I've been out and about. Restaurant owners that are outside the city limits, they're not allowed to serve alcohol in their establishments. They're desperately wanting that. It would help them a lot. One of them now wants to open up a new business, but he said he's come to the board asking for help. He's not getting the help he's asked for, and now he's considering opening a new shop outside of Newton County because of his lack of support from his commissioner and he says the chairman. I'm asking that to help these folks, if I get with you guys after hours, could you guys maybe meet with these 2 business owners and maybe think about reviewing these alcohol ordinances to help these business owners and allow them to have the freedom to operate their business as they please. And then my third question here, I've asked around several in this county. I was reading through the ordinances, Division 2 of the ordinances that were adopted in 2001. And I'm not quite sure. I found Newton County Public Facilities, Inc. And again, you can email me afterwards or answer it here if you have the time. I'm just wondering, what is the role of that? I'm not sure. I've asked around. I can't find an answer. What is this role in our county government? What does it do? That kind of thing. So that's 3 questions, and appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Hi, Sandy Spears, 5168 Deering Street, Covington. My favorite subject is managing resources, and I guess you guys have heard this for almost a year from me. A couple of questions I want to ask, just food for thought. Let's be thinking about things. First of all, let's talk about the landfill. What works in other counties that's not working here? Let's do our fact finding. Let's look at best practices. I believe Lamar County is a good example. DeKalb County, I know they're bigger, but they make a lot of money on a lot of the recyclables. There's a little company called Waste Management who is blowing the doors off Wall Street. They're making a lot of money in the waste management field. Can any of these practices be carried over into the county? And what the county is currently doing, I know as far as resources, Mr. Maddox talked about, there's a lot of equipment that we don't have. Part of managing resources is make sure we have the right things in place for the 21st century. What worked in 1970, 1980, we have environmental issues. There are a lot more things that we have to look at that we're not up to snuff on, that the EPA is going to just take our lunch. Determine what's currently broken and why. Do we have the right resources in place? Again, leave no stone unturned. In all areas of our own lives, we have to do more with less. Part of that's going to be with county government. Unfortunately, Sheriff Brown has lost a lot of people. Training costs are one of the highest costs for not only corporate America, but county and city governments. Replacing these folks is a big drain on our resources in the county. Mr. Craig stated, I believe, a month or so ago that he stands by his legal fees, but are his resources being properly handled as far as the deliverable that we're getting here in the county? I've been coming to meetings not quite a year, and I've noticed that there's usually at least Mr. Craig and one other attorney. Are we paying 2 attorneys? If we are, why? Why can't we manage the resource better and only use 1 attorney?
I've never charged to attend these meetings.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Thank you.
Has the BOC taken a look at the costs and benefits of hiring an in-house attorney? Legal team, we have a heck of a staff for $1 million. And I realize that Mr. Craig's office does have a lot of experience with those years, but again, take lessons learned there. I realize that the BOC on occasions has asked for Mr. Craig's office to do certain legal things. I believe, Mr. Henderson, when your payday thing came up, does that really need to go to his office? Let's manage our own there. The new budget's going to go into effect soon. Let's look at what didn't work for the last budgets and what can work going forward. Worked in corporate America. I've seen a lot of ways corporate and city and county governments where I've also worked. Let's resource, not mismanage, and move forward and learn from our mistakes. Thank you.
Good evening. Praise the name of God, who should be the head of all of our lives. I've sit here and watched, came to the last couple of Board of Commissioner meetings. And it seems like that every meeting, we cannot get all of the commissioners here for some strange reason. This is a meeting where people are coming out to voice their opinion. Commissioners are being paid to do a job. And for some strange reason, in the last 3 years, somewhere we dropped the ball, we kicked the can, and we throw our neighborhood to the wayside. It's time out. It's time out. If you don't want to represent the neighborhood, come out. Resign. I've sit in meeting after meeting of Board of Commissioners, and I've watched this board pass thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just given because someone asked and they came out in big numbers. Don't you guys think that we, the people in Spring Hill, we want to see some results? And we sure don't want no park. Who wants a park where you're going to bring your children and they're going to be playing around toxic waste? I don't want a park. I don't want a playground. I want this problem to be solved. I want it to be solved. You postpone by setting up these committees. You guys know the answer. You guys got the answer. You guys need to give the answer. We don't want it. We do not want it. Somewhere down the line, it has to be accountability, and your accountability has to be held accountable. Doesn't make sense to come to a Board of Commission meeting and you can't get all of y'all five together. Can't get you five together for nothing. For some strange reason, somebody decided to take vacation. I got a job. I just can't jump up. If I got a meeting, I got something to do pertaining to the job. I just can't jump up and take a vacation. I know it's summertime. You plan your vacation around these 2 weeks. It's time out. I'm tired of coming to the commission meeting. I'm tired of coming to these meetings. For what? I sit and I look at your face expressions like you don't care. You raise your head, you scratch your head, you turn and look down, look everywhere, like you don't ain't paying attention. Commissioners, I charge you. I ask and I beg you. Please do something right. Help us out in the Spring Hill community.
Someone else. Someone else would like to speak. Please line up over to my left. Okay, all right. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Peggy Geis, and I spoke to you guys last month as well. I live a few doors down from the Taylors here, and I understand that things don't always go the way we want it to go. But I am disappointed because I don't think you all really looked at the proposal that they put together for you guys tonight. I mean, it wasn't even discussed, and they put quite a bit of thought into what they could do. Mr. Sims said a few minutes ago that variances, the reason that he voted against it was because it was against the rules. But variances are approved. They're approved all the time. And this is not something permanent that they wanted. It was for a short period of time. I've been in that neighborhood since it was built, 23 years now. And there are quite a number of people who are not opposed. They signed the petition. And I just wish that y'all had given it a little bit more consideration and at least looked at what she had proposed tonight.
Next.
Constance Boyce, 992 Lower River Road. I'm tired of standing in front of y'all. The other night it rained. Water poured down off that hill like it had never poured down before.
If you could speak in the microphone a little bit.
That's all I was. Water poured down that hill like it had never poured down before. I've lived in that house for 14 years. I have never had any ponding in front of my home. The other day when it rained, cars had to slow down to get past my house. And when they slowed down, they created a wave. And all that water washed down into my yard, both sides of my house. Now, the creek overruns occasionally, but it has never run into my yard, as deep into my yard. And unfortunately, because I have a lot of overgrowth in my backyard, I was unable to go back there. But I was able to see back there. I had a pool, a small pond in my backyard, and the water is still running down that creek. Okay? Now, I asked my neighbors, have they ever seen anything like that before? They have never, in all the years they've lived there, seen that water pond up on Lower River Road. And it was all the way down the road. Okay, the ball field was filled. The rush of water, the rapid of water was incredible. I went into hysterics. I called 911. First I called DOT. DOT says it's an emergency, call 911. I called 911. 911 said call DOT. Okay? Excuse me? They told me to call DOT. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, well, you can't even come out here and put cones so the people know to slow down? Lower River has never looked that way before in all the years I've lived there. And I've truly contributed to all the cutting of those trees, okay? And that path that they built, that they created on Moat Road and Lower River Road, and it flooded. I'm going to tell you how serious this was. This was so serious, I started packing my stuff. I started packing up my papers, all my photographs. I was ready to get the hell out of there. Okay? It scared me. And fortunately, it did not rain again that night, because we were supposed to get more rain that night. And anybody I called couldn't get out there in time before the water actually, they came out like an hour and a half later. Water had dissipated. Now, someone did come yesterday from the county. I don't remember his last name. I know his first name was Ray. Okay? And Ray said, and another thing, I called DOT about a month ago. I told them that my ditch was corroding. I asked them to come fix it. Instead of creating a berm, they dug a path. And I know what time it is.
I'm trying to be patient, ma'am. Go ahead.
They cut a path, and the water just swooshed right down, okay? So Mr. Ray, what's his last name?
Spencer.
Mr. Spencer came out, okay, and he reviewed everything. He said that the creek had to be cleaned out, okay, and some other things that he mentioned. But again, it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the cutting of those trees and nothing to hold that water back. Okay? So, we can't get the trees back. But we can get some culverts to catch that water. Okay? Because the ditches aren't doing it.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Gladstone Nichols. I live at 495 Lakeside Circle, Fairview Road, great subdivision called Highgate. I come here tonight because, just to echo some of what we've heard already, I family just not forgiving us that ecological lesson. Mainly, a landfill is a permanently deteriorating condition. A landfill never gets better. And to go ahead and consider putting a second, even bigger landfill right adjacent to one that's already now in its last days, which means it's at its most deteriorated state right now, and putting another one next to it will be a horror show for the folks who live there. We're looking at maybe 80, 90 years of depressed property values, bad air that they have to breathe, and who knows what groundwater is being affected. But we do know this: it's not a good recipe. It's not a recipe for a pleasant neighborhood to live in, nor is it a recipe for good drinking water. And we pride ourselves, from what I've heard about the water that Newtown produces. Let's not pride ourselves on the bad environmental effects Newtown can produce. I think going out and doing a business of importing other people's garbage into our own county shows to me a lack of imagination. It's like I used to tell my wife way back in the 90s, if all a company can do to gain productivity is to lay off workers, well, you didn't need to get your MBA to do that. So the idea here is, let's not waste the resources that we have by doing less than we can. Let's, I might say, double down on people instead of doubling down on a bad investment. That's what I have to say.
Charles Johnson, 1020 Lower River Road. I have a question. If the Citizens Committee do not come up with a solution, what's the next action plan? I looked at the water running the other day, and I said that no one comes out and services the area. They come out and they may pick up the trash, but the roads need to be poor. Right below my home, water stands in the road. And people come out there, I'm going to hold most of this guys down. And I went out there and told them, because they made me put a sewage on the side of my property. And nothing is there, because the water was running in the road. But the county comes and put water in the road. I don't understand the logic behind some of the people that's running
none of this being done. It's just an open field. Everything is open. No direct, nothing. This kind of got a serious problem.
Someone else. Citizen comments are closed. Commissioner comments are next on the agenda. Commissioners, do you have some comments tonight you'd like to make?
Just a real quick reminder, I think we forgot to announce the Miracle Field grand opening this Saturday at 9.
I think it's 8:30. I've got to give out programs. I should know that. But yes, I appreciate it very much. 9 a.m. Thank you. I'll be early. And other commissioners? We have an executive session tonight to consider a personnel issue. I need a motion to go into executive session